Any questions on the bill we just signed?
I understand that it's a success that the bill is passed and it's signed, but, you know, it took a crisis to get it to this point. Any comment on, you know, why it takes, you know, really that long?
It's a process. I'm stealing her lines. It is a process, and unfortunately, sometimes the process is a lot slower than we would like it to be. But when incidents like in Philadelphia and in State College come to the surface, it brings it much more to the attention, not only of the public, but of the General Assembly. And I think sometimes when that happens, constituents around the state start making phone calls and saying, what are we doing? Why aren't we there? I mean, I'll go back, and Delilah and I have talked about this before, and Carol and I. When I started in the DA's office in '76, we were just starting victim witness centers, just starting. Now they're, you know, an everyday part of our lives, but it took a long time, and unfortunately, this took a long time. But I kind of look to the future. This is done. We move forward. We have other bills that we need to get done. This is the time to really bring them back up, probably when we come back in January. But if there is a positive side to what happened, this is one of the positives to what happened. It brought it to the attention of the public, brought it to the attention of the General Assembly, and it got it passed.
If I may, as a member of the General Assembly, you know, 203 members in the House, 50 members in the State Senate, and thousands upon thousands of competing legislative proposals floating through the General Assembly. Let me just state that case law on this matter was extremely strong. And we worked extremely hard with people on all sides of this issue to ensure that we had language that did not do what opponents of this legislation thought that it would, and that was unfairly bolster the credibility of victims in cases of sexual assault. So we had several different drafts, several versions, and we finally made it through the process. Let me also just state that, you know, talking about experts testifying in cases of sexual assault is not a very sexy legislative issue to be promoting. And prior to these two extremely highly publicized cases taking place, I do think there are those of us who were fixated on this issue because we heard the testimony, we participated in the hearings, but it did take, as the governor mentioned, these unfortunate instances to allow Pennsylvanians to know how antiquated and archaic our law on this issue had been. And so we're actually here, and you know, I don't want to apologize, but I guess I do have to apologize, Governor, to say that, again, it took us 6 years to get the bill to your desk, but we got it to you, and we're working hard on the next steps.
And I do want to add, obviously, with Delilah here, the victim community, the District Attorneys Association have been there from day one for the entire 6 years. I know that they had talked about this even before, and they should get all the credit in the world for getting this, the legislature focused on this, getting the testimony they needed to hear to get this passed. Another question. Jan?
The task force on child protection, I know that work has held up some other legislation because they said they wanted to have like hear what the task force recommends before moving forward with some of these ideas. So, you know, why was it okay to move ahead with this one? And then I also like about the statute of limitations.
Well, first off, on this one, this was well out in front of the task force. It had been there, as you've heard, 6 years. On the statute of limitation one, I don't think I'm going to personally weigh in on that one until I see what the task force is dealing with it. I mean, that becomes a very touchy issue to a lot of people. I think you can imagine where most prosecutors would come from, but there's a balancing issue there that goes on there. So I don't think it's appropriate for me to weigh in at this time. Pete?
Both you and Representative Barker referred to the next steps. You mentioned like they started on
Well, I think we're going to see what the task force has to recommend to us.
And no, I would agree. The only other issue that came up during one of our hearings was the specifics regarding jury instruction in cases of sexual assault. And so when I listened to the experts tell me what was traditionally normal behavior, and again, I am not an attorney and don't profess to have any, expert legal analysis, but just common sense said to me, if this is how the experts tell me victims of sexual assault behave, but these are the instructions that our judges give to the jury when they are deliberating in these cases, there is some sort of conflict here. So we have our legal staff in the House and also in the Senate. I know Rep. Kate Harper and we've been working together again for a very long time. Senator Greenleaf in the Senate, along with Senator Leach. So all the legal teams from the General Assembly are working very hard to see if we can come up with some compromise language. And to the DA's Association, we'll be leaning on you once again to help us get it right.
And I think, Ed or Sean, if you want to add in on anything. Cat got their tongue, huh? Okay.
Same thing you said, Governor, we're waiting for the task force to see.
Okay.
Governor, of course, PFAR is fishing for the protection order for rape victims. Is another big piece of legislation we're going to be able to get the General Assembly to support us on.
Did the law previously bar expert testimony, particularly in this area of crimes, or is that a broader prohibition against expert testimony?
Basically, yes, the law prohibited expert testimony as to the motivation as to why somebody did not report it sooner. You heard District Attorney Wagner talk about how attorneys could question at will and argue to a jury, why didn't they report it? It's easy when there's nothing to refute it. You can put the child or the person on the stand, and then it becomes he said, she said. When the experts are finally allowed in, I think it'll be very beneficial to a jury in helping to determine what the facts are. Okay, thank you all. You got other questions? Okay, they're going to do other questions with me.
Last year when the Sandusky news broke, there was some talk about requiring Penn State to be more transparent and fully comply with the right to know law and wanted to receive taxpayer funds. Going forward, do you think that would be reasonable if Penn State had to fully comply with the law and wanted any taxpayer funding?
Boy, that's a compound, maybe triple compound question. And I have two different perspectives here, actually three. One is former Attorney General, one is Governor, one is a member of the Board of Trustees. Let me answer it very broadly. I believe in transparency. I believe that Penn State needs to look at the issue of right to know, as do all the state related to receive money from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as to where that money is being and how that money is being spent. At the same time, I understand that there is concern among the state relateds, particularly the research institution, as to protection of formulas and secret intellectual property secrets, that has to be addressed. So I think it's something that the legislature is going to have to work on, not this year, they have very limited time this year, but starting next year, and particularly when it comes to this issue. I'm looking forward, as I'm sure you all are looking forward, to former FBI Director and Judge Louis Freeh's report to see what the recommendations are. I'm looking forward to it as a Board of Trustees member, but also as the governor. And in my opinion, we need to look at how that should be, whatever those recommendations are, how would they apply to all the other schools in Pennsylvania? Okay?
Your thought on the leaked emails?
My thought on leaked email is, you know that I don't like leaked information. I think it should come out at an appropriate time. I'm upset to see that something's come out piecemeal like that. I'm not sure where it came from. We're waiting now for Director Freeh's report. I would assume some of it might be contained in there, but I never think it's good when information is leaked out in that way.
You just
I understand they have been. I was not present when they were briefed, but I'm not sure that they were provided the emails. I don't believe that to be the case. I think they were briefed on the existence of emails, but I'm not positive, Dennis.
As the Attorney General who started this investigation, or was the AG when it started, and now a member of the Board of Trustees, what changes would you, as a Board of Trustee member, like to see made based on what you know as the former Attorney General and how they acted to
Well, I'm not going to tell you that right now because I want to see the free report and see exactly where it is going. I have some ideas that I will share with the Board of Trustees, and when I do that, I'll make sure that the public knows about that also. You can never legislate everything correctly. You can't legislate behavior. And if you look at this issue, much of this is behavior. Behavior by Mr. Sandusky and by others in different respects. So while you may have all these rules out there, and they're after the fact, if there are consequences, unfortunately you can't legislate the behavior of the individuals. So it's incumbent upon everybody who is at an institution that has a responsibility to children to understand that they have that responsibility to the children first. The night of the vote, that everybody knows about, the one thing that I said was that they must remember the children. Well, that must remember the children applies not just to Penn State, it applies to everybody. It applies to anybody in a caretaker situation to those children, whether it's in a daycare center, whether it's in a church, whether it's in a YWCA, whatever. We have a duty to our children, and that has to be followed. Pete, I'll let you two fight it out.
You signed the state budget shortly before midnight on Saturday night, which was the deadline. You said earlier in the week that the budget, as we discussed it, included not only the spending bill, but companion bills that go with it. Yet, even though you signed the budget before the deadline, the tax code bill or the fiscal code bill didn't get signed until Monday.
Didn't get signed, but they were voted upon. That was enough. They were voted upon before I signed. I would not sign that fiscal, or the budget bill until I knew that the fiscal, because I didn't want the fiscal code to be changed, or because that would be the prohibition in my mind. The fiscal code and the tax code had already been voted upon. In fact, if you remember, Kevin was trying to get me to move forward a little bit faster. I said, no, I want to know. And then I was informed that both bills had been passed.
They both have been passed by both houses.
By both houses, right.
So there's not even a technical.
No, there's not even a nope.
That's some Democrats.
Of course you have some. No,
Be
no,
nice,
no
be
offense.
nice, be nice.
There's always going to be somebody that says, well, they were passed, and I think if you look, I looked at my watch, it was 5 minutes early. It was 11:45 instead of 11:50. Okay, other Pete.
About a month or 5 weeks before the budget, you made a change in your chief of staff, and then immediately took a nice, quiet, low-key period so he could get his feet wet and all, and his chief of staff. How do you feel your team worked? Before you made that change, there was a fair amount of criticism from your friends, much less from the house.
Pete, I'm not going to get into that right here. Maybe some other time I will. This isn't, in this setting, this isn't the time to get into that. I think the team, I look at the end result. The end result was from the time that budget was introduced to the time it was passed and all the legislation that went into that, I'm very pleased. By the way, I like the article. We got a lot done, a whole lot done. And a lot of it was bipartisan. I received a letter today in the mail from former Governor Leader, who was basically said he was ecstatic with Senate Bill 100 passing. And in writing a letter back to him today, I said, I was pleased to be able to do something like that in a bipartisan way. And by the way, that seems to be breaking out here in the Capitol, because if you look at some of the other bills, including this bill, it was in a bipartisan way.
Last question. Governor, what are your priorities for the fall legislative session, and what exactly has to get done on action? or
On pensions? Is that what you said?
if that is one of your goals for
You know, we need to start the dialogue on pension this summer. I don't see anything getting done on pensions this fall, but we need to get to it right after the new year. Because take a look at the budget. This year, we went up 500 million. We have to go up another, I think it might be 600 million in the next fiscal year now. When you have those kind of increases, the economy's not growing that fast. The question is, where does the money come from to pay those pensions? And part of the problem with those pensions is, can be, you know, our actions of the past, underfunding, overestimating generously rates of return, an economy going south. So all that combined to put us in the situation we're in. We can't fix that, so we have to deal with it now. And myself and the General Assembly, we're going to have to come up with money to pay those pensions. Okay?
So what are your goals for the fall?
Well, for the fall, I'd certainly like to see us finish the charter school. We were within a sentence of getting it done. A sentence.
Which one?
I'm not telling you. I can't be that easy. Okay? We were within a sentence, in my opinion. Let things cool off a little bit here in the summer, bring them back in. We need to get that done, and as part of that, we need to get, there was a funding commission recommended, both as to special ed and as to charter and cyber charter. That's a lot of where the money, how it's being delivered can go. And there's bipartisan interest in getting that done, because that has a lot of effect on the school districts and how the school money goes.
Just a quick follow-up on that. There are some folks who are hoping you're going to appoint a charter school funding commission rather than wait for one to be created in the fall. Have you really thought of that?
I could appoint one, but in this case, I think I need to have the legislature involved in that. Well, Pete, you know, I'm going back through what was going on in negotiations during all that period of time, and I'm not sure that right now is the time for me to make a decision as to what I'm going to do when it comes to that. But we need to have that study. I mean, I think everybody calls for it. I think even PSEA is calling for special ed and cyber and charter, bricks and mortar charter. Thank you all.